Well, hello, everybody. Hello again to some people who were here a few minutes ago. Good morning to those who've just joined us. Welcome to day 2 of the Symposium on Eudaimonia and Music Learning. We're about to have our first presentation of the day, and I'm excited to welcome Minoru Shimizu from Hirosaki University in Japan, speaking about happiness of music can be obtained through music making with trial and error. Minoru, it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. Over to you.
Yeah. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thanks to Gareth and Marissa. Actually, I'm so nervous because I'm not good at English, but I would like to do my best. Please allow subtitles under the slides for everyone to hear, because my pronunciation may be not good. I will get started. I'm beginning to warm up again to feel happy. This is watching out of the ordinary as yet, just a little nausea and happiness. This sentence is in Sartre's book, Nausea. And this sentence is a monologue of Rokantan, who is the main character in that book. What is the happiness he is looking for? If human actions are chosen on the basis of the pursuit of the happiness, understanding the concept of happiness is necessary for music education. This study is based on a phenomenological viewpoint of the relationship between recognition and existence on the time axis. This philosophical thinking aims to clarify the nature of happiness in music activity. Sometimes the meaning of something is suddenly attacking when the past event appears to the subject in an obsessive sense. The meaning is always the mirror image of I. Hence, it is always associated with I. When it is a negative past for me, the subject will constantly face self-denial. Rokantan found moments of happiness despite such nausea from old ragtime music flowing from gramophone records. What was the happiness that Rokantan gained while listening to music? He said that there are 2 times while listening to music. One is time developed on the bottom of our time, and another is a different time from our time. The following discussion is about the happiness of music of Rokantan with philosophical thinking based on the structure of the work of signification on the time axis. First, I will explain the epistemology, which is the premise of today's presentation. We must think of the time axis because we live on the absolute duration of time. Bergson affirmed that time is absolute duration and irreversible. That means pure time is absolute difference. We can recognize the existence of myself even on the time axis, where the present is constantly disappearing because the subject can recall the past self repeatedly. At that time, the movement of the subject is generated by anticipating the future on the basis of recalling the past self. In other words, both in time and in the relationship between the subject in the space and the outside world, there is a relationship in which they are created, which are the reasons for each other. When we consider our existence in the world of time and space, we must take that into consideration. This relation that future and past make is a circular relationship based on ontology and epistemology. by Martin Heidegger, Jack Lacan, um, Japanese philosopher Bin Kimura, and Victoria Freiheit von Weizsäcker. Figure 1 illustrates the relation of recognition to the existence of a subject on the basis of that theory. Now let's interpret Sartre's sentence from epistemology. Then the following can be said. The subject can recognize by repeatedly recalling the past in the conscious space, which means to recognize between the start and the end of something. In other words, the subject comprehends in the inherent causal relationship with that something in the conscious space because there is a sequence or before and after in that something generated from the time axis as an absolute difference. The articulation between the start and the end equals to the recognition of the time after the end of the subject self. The recognition of the time before subject life or after that generates the comprehensive understanding to the fact of nothing of subject self. Signification effect is an articulation of space. The spatial articulation of an event means the articulation of pure duration, Bergson noted. When that articulation changes from something to the subject itself, subject recognizes the start and the end of subject itself. That means by birth and death recognized. The nausea that attacks Rokantan must have been such the matter when the subject touched his own time. Rokantan, as the agent of Sartre, described this duality of time as follows. While he was listening to the old ragtime, he stated that there is a time different from our time, as a reason for the modest happiness that he felt. It seems that his modest happiness time was generated by the relationship with the time of others. What is the another time he stated? This figure is sought from the structure of recognition to the existence of self as I. From that structure of recognition, the subject can generate a signification to the future on the basis of the recognition of the past X in the time of other on time axis B. For music activities, that time is the duration of sound and music. That structure of relation for the recognition generates the significance of existence for the subject. And that significance is the form that I have the means of life for something or someone. Thus, something and someone is other or others. These and they give the time of other and names for the subject I only. That's why I can gain the means of life I live for other. When the time as I is involved in the causal relation from X to Y in other time, that is grouped as thing or something, the target of conscious action is to depart from the subject self as I, which means to escape the means of death. For example, I select the present for son and daughter, or I cook the dinner for husband, or I prepare the materials for students, or I play the guitar for audience. and so on. For something, someone gives me the time of other, and the ever-present now is coming from the purposeful future by the other causal relation from X to Y of other time. At that time, purposeful future is purpose of life. In this relationship, the target of consciousness named something is the object of desire, and if the normally living purpose equals the purpose of life, then it can be replaced with happiness. To summarize the above discussion from the view of music, in the process that the subject makes music from an encounter with the sound, the future of music involves other things, or persons becomes the purpose of life by the subject itself. The goodness for the subject I is not only oneself because the target of consciousness is generated from the relation between the subject and others, and the signification of goodness based on satisfaction must be goodness for us and not only me. The goodness in this situation must be named ethics and not simply goodness. Such activities for exploring more ethical things that involve other subjects are intended beyond individual satisfaction, and these activities can be named a behavior like philia. However, only the time of others cannot explain the system of generating the situation of happiness, because the invisibility image of happiness must be anticipated as the purpose of the action of the subject to arise the positive or negative feeling for the subject. That happiness image is the matter that occurs simultaneously on the continuation of now, and comes from the matter perceived by the encounter with the pre-linguistic things that are the objects of conscious actions before becoming a world. For the establishment of a trial at that moment, what happiness image is working as metanoesis is to be able to explain phenomenon of human happiness. Metanoesis is the intentionality of conscious actions prior to the intentionality of conscious actions. Beauty generates positive feelings, and that feelings trigger the desire of repetition. Strictly speaking, one sound is also a duration on the time axis. One sound is a duration from the beginning to the end, and the duration of one sound is recognized retroactively by conscious actions. Given that the spatial difference is repeated on the time axis, the same texture is recognized as the duration of one sound. At that time, while recalling the past spatially and catching the start event retrospectively at the time of the end, by keeping the space as one object, articulate duration of time becomes one thing as object of consciousness action. At that time, while recalling the past spatially, that one thing is closed as the texture of the sound. We can escape from the signification of my time because there is no signification effect that divides the start and the end. In other words, the subject feels the positive feeling from the texture of sound or music, and the subject obtains the pleasure of life. We name that positive feeling beauty. When the textures generated by music making catch the consciousness action of the subject can escape from the time of the subject itself because the repetitive duration of a texture is a spatial difference, not a temporal difference. That positive feeling is the actual feeling, and desire for repetition without the signification by language. Sartre described such a time as being at the bottom of our time and knowing it 20 years ago. It is, it is the time that is spreading to the bottom of the meaning of things, a fundamental time with no beginning or end. And this time is the time of happiness arising from thinking about the object itself. From the above, we can say what the music needs to be happy time is the next two. One is the thing that the relation of the subject exists as I is occurred the reason for others. In this relation, other means music or other persons, which is the target of conscious action. Those activities can escape from the negative effects for the existence of significance because the other time axis involves the action of recognition by language activities. That relation is also named philia by ancient Greek philosopher, and this is the necessary condition A for music happiness. Another is the thing where the subject engages in sound and music that gives him satisfaction in the stage of sense before language. Thereafter, the subject obtains the actual feelings of living by escaping from the questions about the reasons to live because the conscious action of the subject intends the target of conscious actions. That is named beauty. This is the necessary condition B for music happiness. In music activities, the role of music making occurs when people search the sound and music fit their feelings by trial and error. Those activities guarantee the existence of the self, and this is the necessary condition A. Hence, individual and purposive happiness cannot be generalized. The individual recognition world is not similar, and happiness is not similar based on the context of time and space. Thus, the sound and music in making satisfaction for the subject I are different based on the context of time and space. We must choose the sound and music on the basis of each context. Thus, when the subject starts to search even one note by trial and error, the possibility of happiness event comes into being based on his context. This encounter of beauty is a necessary condition B. Hence, trial and error is so important for music making. Furthermore, humans need communication for obtaining the time of others as a reason to live. Thus, the next important thing for music making is to set a group activity for making communication. We must then think of the problem of techniques or skills for music making. But that problem is not difficult because this problem can be solved by creative music and group activities. Music activity is no division and all is search and getting the desirable sound and music on each time and space. Therefore, the performance of music work is not different from music making. Music works is others' skill. Music activities difference is the degree of borrowing the other's skill. At my university, I practice music group activities based on this idea. Initially, students made some groups of 5 or 6 persons and choose a music work. They then decided on the role in the performance to fit each musical ability, and the role they decided on has many varieties. Consequently, all the students were eager to participate in music activities and to make communication with many conversations. Additionally, the comments of all the students after the activities were positive. At the end of this presentation, this study aims to obtain the basic theory and idea for music education by philosophical thinking. After this study, this theory and idea must be proven by practice, and music education must be based in this theory of music happiness. Final thoughts. The most important thing is that music activities are established with trial and error and communication to each other. Moreover, that relationship between subject and others has failure and beauty, and they give happiness of music and reasons to live for human beings. This is all my, this is all my presentation. Thank you so much for your kind attention.